Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Who would have thought we'd be talking about this game? Two teams that combined for 7 wins last year are now meeting up in a top 20 showdown with College Gameday in attendance as number 17 TCU takes on number 19 Kansas. I mean, guys, this is unreal. It's also the beauty of college football, but it's unreal. A weekend where Oklahoma is playing Texas. Our focus in the Big 12 and on the national stage is in Lawrence, Kansas, as these two teams, both sitting undefeated, both being Big 12 title contenders, face off as Kansas hosts College Gameday for the first time ever and is sitting as a ranked team for the first time in 13 years. That is college football, baby, and that is what we love about it. So let's get down to it. We're here to break down everything you need to know for the Horned Frogs and the Jayhawks. This huge top 20 showdown between two legitimate Big 12 title contenders. And of course, we're going to share our official prediction on who remains unbeaten. Before we get into all of that, guys, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best college football and NFL spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the entire country. We have beat out over 80% of the national analysts each of the last 4 years, and we want you to take advantage of those picks and become a part of our Nation. So check it out. The link for that down in the description below. And again, become a part of our growing community here at the Gridiron Expert. So let's dive into this game, guys. Again, TCU coming in at 4-0, Kansas coming in at 5-0, both in the Big 12 title hunt, both in the top 20. Again, you couldn't have predicted this in the preseason. If you had told me they'd be top 20 teams, I'd laugh at you. And if you're going to sit there in the comments and say, I predicted that, you're lying to yourself. But let's go ahead and jump into the personnel, and we'll start offensively with TCU, the road team here. The offense for TCU and new head coach Sonny Dykes was on full display last week against Oklahoma. The Horned Frogs dropped 55 points on that Brent Venables defense and had 668 yards of offense, including 361 on the ground. Unreal numbers, guys. Unreal. Max Duggan has been playing fantastic football. A guy who's kind of had an up-and-down career with the Horned Frogs. Kind of has found himself again under Sonny Dykes. 997 yards on the year, 11 touchdowns, and zero interceptions this year. Also has 149 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. 4 players for TCU have at least 100 rushing yards, led by Kendre Miller with 386 yards and 5 touchdowns. They also have a very experienced wide receiver core, another testament to the fantastic numbers that Max Duggan has been putting up. This Horned Frogs offense, guys, they're fast, they're explosive, and more importantly, they're balanced. 297.8 passing yards per game, nearly 300, 251.8 rushing yards per game. They can beat you through the air. They can beat you on the ground. They got a dual threat quarterback, which always makes things more difficult. They are thriving under Sonny Dykes. But the reason that Kansas has seen such a resurgence this year under Coach Lance Leipold, again, only in his second year in Lawrence, the reason they've seen such a resurgence is their offense. It's a major reason for their 5-0 start. The Jayhawks, guys, 41.6 points per game, averaging over 200 passing yards per game and 218.6 rushing yards per game. So like TCU, very balanced. Not as high of numbers as TCU, but still balanced, and Kansas showing they can beat you through the air, they can also beat you on the ground. Kansas is doing it with a quarterback that was mediocre last year, but is looking like a Heisman contender this year. Jalon Daniels. Unreal numbers, guys. 983 yards, 11 touchdowns, just 1 interception. Also has thrown for for 329 rushing yards and 5 touchdowns. 329 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. Also has a guy in Devin Neal who leads the team in rushing with 333 yards. So he has 333. Their quarterback has 329. You talk about an RPO-style offense. Kansas offensively is very, very tough to stop. The Jayhawks want to run the ball. They want to run it with Neal. They want to get Daniels involved. And the more you run, the greater the chance you have to air it out. The run to set up the pass. And Lance Leipold has figured that out, and that's a major reason for, again, the Jayhawks' offensive success this year. When you take a look at the defense, it's going to be a tough test for both. I mean, TCU is going to have a hard time shutting down Kansas, but the same can be said for the Jayhawks. But when you look at TCU's defense, it's been decent. Definitely better than they were last year. 248.3 passing yards per game they're allowing but they're only allowing 120 rushing yards per game. That's your key number right there. Kansas has got to find a way to exploit that. Daniels is good, but he can't win the game by himself solely through the air. Kansas, again, a team that's rushing for over 218 yards per game, has to find a way to exploit the TCU rushing defense. It's allowing about 100 yards less than the Jayhawks average. But the one concern I do have for TCU, they don't get much push off the line. Only 9 sacks so far this year. 9 sacks in 4 games and have only forced 5 takeaways. Kansas and TCU, for that matter, take very good care of the football. I don't think you'll see many turnovers in Lawrence on Saturday morning. So TCU, guys, they've got to find a way to get off the field. That's the biggest thing for them defensively. They have to find a way to force some quick 3-and-outs. They've got to find a way to maybe force a turnover or 2. They've got to find a way to keep Kansas behind the chains. If you can get Kansas behind the chains, they're not going to run the ball. They're going to have to air it out. Daniels is capable of that, but that's not really what the Jayhawks want to do. Kansas wants to grind it out on the ground. Yes, they have the explosive capability, but grind it out on the ground, dominate the time of possession. You definitely do against this TCU offense. And Kansas wants to limit the amount of times that TCU holds the ball. TCU needs to make sure their offense on the field as much as possible, and to do that, they have to get quick stops. Quick stops is going to be the key in this game for the Horned Frogs. When you look at Kansas, defensively, they're only allowing 24 points per game, but they are allowing nearly 270 passing yards per game. That is my biggest concern. My biggest concern for Kansas is that they might get torched to the air by Max Duggan in this passing attack. So their secondary is going to have to step up big time. Yeah, we know TCU last week had, 361 rushing yards against the Sooners? And we are fully aware they could do that again against Kansas. But it's the secondary that's more of a weakness than that front 7 for the Jayhawks. Kansas, though, guys, more better than TCU, has more pressure. They have more push on the line. 15 sacks on the year. They have forced 7 turnovers. TCU has given up 7 sacks to Kansas's 2. So, again, when you look at who owns the battle in the trenches, who owns the battle up front, I'm actually going to lean Kansas. Kansas so far has given Jalon Daniels more protection. Only 2 sacks allowed. They obviously have a great push up front to allow for such a strong rushing game. And their defensive line has been getting after opposing quarterbacks, and they have faced a few good ones. JT Daniels, Clayton Tune, Riley Leonard. Certainly, Kansas has been more battle-tested so far this year than TCU has, whose greatest test was last week against Oklahoma, or maybe the week before when they took on SMU and won that game by 8. But ultimately, guys, again, defensively for both teams, TCU, don't allow Kansas to grind it out. Get some quick stops. Don't allow Kansas to dominate you on the ground. So far, the rushing defense has been good, but Kansas will be the best rushing offense that TCU has seen. Kansas, defensively, shut down the pass. Yeah, we know the Horned Frogs can run it too, but you cannot allow them to be multidimensional. Don't allow them to have the passing game and the running game going just like they had last week against Oklahoma. Got to find a way to shut it down. So what is going to happen in this game, guys? I mean, what a historic game, and what a just historic year already. Kansas has been one of the biggest laughing stocks of college football for years now. Last decent year they may have had was, 2009? Maybe go back as far as 2007 or 2008. Lance Leipold, in just his second year, has the Jayhawks ranked 19th in the country, ranked for the first time since 2009, 5-0, and if they win this game, they'll be going bowling. The Jayhawks have their sights set on much more. Not just a bowl game. They have their sights set on a Big 12 title. And the winner of this game will solidify themselves as a true contender for that Big 12 title. I'll say this. I think it's a shame this game's at 11 a.m. This feels a top 20 matchup. Feels like it should be a prime time game. And how great would it be to have game day there with a prime time matchup in Lawrence? You don't get too many of those. But I will say this as well. I've been very impressed with both teams. But the one thing that stands out to me more than anything else is Kansas and their ability to win games in different ways. We talked about Kansas being tested. They won against West Virginia, a shootout in the rain in overtime. They won that game. They dominated Houston, who, yes, maybe isn't as good as we thought, but to beat Houston that bad, still pretty dang impressive. And then last week, against Iowa State, Kansas has been blowing teams out left and right. They crushed Houston. They were doing pretty good against Duke. Won by 8, but that score was a little bit closer than the game really was. Against Iowa State, they win 14-11. A low-scoring game where the offense really wasn't clicking, but their defense stepped up big. They held Iowa State to 16 rushing yards in that victory. We know the Cyclones missed some field goals here and there, but hey, that's part of the game. Kansas has not only been more battle-tested, but they have shown they can win in different ways. And I think they're going to win in a very unexpected way on Saturday. Their defense is going to turn in another phenomenal performance against Max Duggan and this TCU offense. It will be high-scoring. But ultimately, I have more faith right now in Lance Leipold and the Jayhawks. I picked Kansas in the preseason. I picked them to beat TCU. I didn't think they'd be 5-0 when they did it, but I picked them to beat TCU in Lawrence. I'm sticking by that pick. I am on the Jayhawks bandwagon. Give me Kansas to move to 6-0. They're going bowling, but more importantly, they're legitimate Big 12 title contenders, and they'll be atop of those standings when Sunday rolls around. Give me the Jayhawks in a thriller over TCU. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and of course, check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Some of the best spread picks in the entire country for one of the lowest prices in the country. Go sign up for those today and become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.